Can everybody still see to eat? Yeah, the reason I didn't partake of that wonderful smelling food, that's fine. I mean, if everybody doesn't mind being in the dark. And can you still film in the dark? Okay, cool. The reason I didn't partake is my wife was making something special, and if I went home with a full belly, I'd be in trouble. So thank you for all the invites to eat, but I had to hold off. So my name's Alan Bennett. I've been a club member since last year about this time, I think. Yep, I think so, yeah. I'm enjoying my year. I haven't been out on many lately, but been real busy. But I'm a retired geologist, and I have a real affinity for Mt St Helens because right now I live really, really close to it. I'm only about 45 miles away from it. I live in Castle Rock. And I'm a member of the Mt St Helens Institute. I'm a volunteer there. And I do a lot of work with them on the trails, on the climbing route, and then on their guided programs. I serve as an interpretive geologist to go along on the hikes and along on into the crater, glacier overlook hikes, and I do the interpretation for paying clients that go along. So really love Mt St Helens. And so the presentation tonight was called the Volcanic Crater of Mt St Helens, but it sounds kind of boring. What's more interesting is what's inside the crater. That's a crater glacier. A lot of folks don't even know that there's a glacier inside of the crater. And why is there a glacier inside of a volcano? And why, since Mt St Helens is only about 8,300 feet tall, does that seem tall enough to support a glacier? We'll talk about that. Mt St Helens did support, when it was 9,600 feet, it supported something like 11 different glaciers. And this is pretty much the last one left after the eruption. There are some small vestigial parts of what are now probably snowfields, more permanent snowfields than glaciers. But yeah, Crater Glacier is pretty interesting because it's very young. It's only been around since the late. It was only identified as a glacier in the late 80s after the 1980 eruption. So as we go along, if you have questions, just let me know. Uh-oh.
So I have a question. Is that the glacier we're looking at here?
Yeah, I was gonna.
And you can kind of see it going out into
Yep.
the distance.
I'll give you this.
And stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Right here, this is the whole, all the way around here. I'm standing up. Well, I didn't take this picture. A friend of mine, Dave Hill, did. And they, excuse me? Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, this is the crater rim here. And the individual who took the picture is standing right up here on the rim. And you can see the western arm of the glacier that goes all the way down to what's called, like, down into the breach and almost to the flat area below the breach. And then you can't really see the eastern arm over here, but to give you perspective, right up here is Spirit Lake. You can see that up in the, and over here would be Johnston Ridge, or Harry's Ridge right there, and then Johnston Ridge over along here. So this is, yeah, and this right here is the dome. This is the mountain, or the dome in the center of the crater. That from 2004 to 2008, the mountain tried to rebuild itself, and we'll see some more pretty cool pictures from the USGS. There was a period of rebuilding of the volcano from 1980 to 1986, where there were a lot of little mini eruptions and lava coming up and building these domes. And then it stopped in 86, and then it started building up again in 2004 to 2008. And it's still active. It's still an active volcano. You can stand up on this rim on a good day and look right down into fumaroles on top of this these fissures in the rock and see steam coming up out of it. You can get a good clear day, and you can see steam from Johnson Ridge Observatory. You can see steam from the Science and Learning Center and places along the route as you hike up the JRO. So, yes.
Can you define glacier versus snow? What do you call it, snowfield?
A snowfield, yeah. Like a permanent snowfield would be something that the snow is deposited. It doesn't develop. It melts away. There is no continual. It doesn't continually grow larger. The snowfield. It doesn't compress. It doesn't start moving on its own like a glacier does. A glacier is something that snow comes down. It is piled up over the years. It just compresses. It basically turns to ice, and it starts to actually move. And this is kind of a simplistic explanation, but it actually just starts to move on its under its own weight. So yeah, and these snowfields, they're not self-sustaining. They don't really get compressed down and start moving, and they're just not big enough or vast enough. They lose mass too quickly. Okay, so, and now this is from a different perspective. This is looking up towards the crater. This is the crater rim here, western rim, eastern rim, and this is the toe or the snout of the glacier. This is where it sort of terminates right here. And on the Mt St Helens Institute into the crater hikes, we walk right up to this area here within the crater. And you don't want to get too close to this because it's covered with rock, and there's constant rock fall off of there. I've seen rocks the size of Volkswagens roll off of that thing. So you got to be, we keep people back from it. But it's really pretty fascinating to see that.
How thick is it there?
I'm not exactly sure how thick at the toe it is, but it would look probably, yeah, you can see people standing right here. So it's probably, good, thanks, good eye. I mean, we're back probably at least, 100 feet. And so that's probably over 100 feet thick there. Why? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the glacial history of the area. Extensive glaciers are not unheard of on Mt St Helens. I mean, they were there during major ice ages of the past several hundred thousand years, but much of the geologic records of the ice age events is incomplete because it's been removed or buried by other volcanic eruptions. So there's not a whole lot of information that scientists can study anymore about the previous glaciation in the area. The largest glacier recognized extended more than 25 miles down the Lewis River Valley from the Mt St Helens area. Now that's not necessarily Mt St Helens itself, but the area where Mt St Helens is now located. That was about 300,000 years ago, and that was part of an extensive system of mountain glaciers that covered much of the region around the volcano. So, and then in the Pacific Northwest, in the last major ice age lasted about, to about 15,000 years ago, and those glaciers were not quite as extensive as some of the earlier stuff, the continental glaciers that affected the Northwest. They only extended about 7 miles south of the current summit of Mt St Helens. So glaciation has been active in the Pacific Northwest and around Mt St Helens, the Mt St Helens area. There's another shot of the toe of the glacier. You can see how rocky, how all this rock and debris and that on top of the glacier. And that serves a purpose. We'll talk about it a little bit later. That's one of the reasons the glacier is there. Here's a USGS graphic that shows what glaciers were present previously before 1980, before the major eruption. And then this is basically the crater, and this is what's left now, or after 1980. And these aren't so much glaciers anymore. A lot of them were just blown down obliterated and blown down with all the mud and during the eruption with the debris avalanche, took down a lot of glacial material, ice, water, and such, and then the subsequent lahars, or the mud flows from the melting, the meltwater and stuff that came down. So yeah, we don't have much left. Glacial. Not many glaciers left, real full glaciers left on the mountain, like they were pre-1980. So the crater of Mt St Helens currently holds the youngest glacier on Earth, and it's called Crater Glacier. That's a Crater Glacier. Yeah, there's a story. There's a story about the name of it too. We'll talk about that later. It seems like the crater of a volcano would be an unlikely location for a glacier because of the high amount of geothermal heat from the volcano and the low altitude in the crater, only about 6,500 feet. So Crater Glacier really shouldn't exist on just any other Cascade mountain. It turns out that several characteristics, of the crater, actually, the Mt St Helens crater, actually make up and allow it to develop and to flourish. It is a combination of high annual snowfall and snow avalanching down from the steep crater walls down into the crater. There's shade because it's a north-facing crater, so it's not exposed as much. It's not a south-facing exposure. It's a north-facing exposure, so it's cooler than the south side of the mountain. And so the snow that falls down, the snowfall doesn't melt as rapidly. It piles up. And there's a thick layer of insulating dust and rock debris covering the glacier's surface. As you could see in those pictures of the toe or the snout of the glacier, that's just all covered with rock. And anytime you're up there hiking, you can actually, pretty much every time you're up there, even at John Sturridge Observatory, you can hear rock fall. Especially if you go out on the eastern side and you go on a Lewitt Trail or whatever, you can hear rock fall. You can see evidence of rock fall oftentimes on a clear day with all the dust that comes up. So there's tons and tons and tons of rock and dust and rock flour and that just comes down and covers that glacier surface. And what that does is it insulates it. So it allows it to, it doesn't lose mass as rapidly as if it weren't covered. If it weren't covered, it probably would lose, it would be exposed to the sunlight and it would lose mass quicker. So due to these ideal conditions, the permanent snowfield formed there by 1988, and a glacier was actually formed by 1996. So they first started seeing this snowfield develop in the late 80s, and it looked like it was, could have been developed into a glacier. They kept an eye on it, kept studying it, and and they officially figured that, well, yeah, by 1996 they said, folks, we got a glacier. So there we are, Crater Glacier. Here's a couple pictures. This was taken by a gentleman who's a flight instructor. Takes a lot of pictures, puts them up on the internet. I asked him if I could use these pictures. I talked about the 1986 and, to 1980 to 1986 dome building when the mountain was trying to rebuild itself. And then the 2004 to 2008 dome building. There are the two domes right there. And here, it's kind of hard to see because there's a lot of snow. This is winter. You can see the glacier all the way down here. It comes down, here's the west side, here's the east side. And then it's up around this crater dome here, the 2004 to 2008 dome. And it works its way all the way down. And you got these other little glaciers kind of building here along the sides on the west crater wall. I'm sorry, the east crater wall. I'm challenged here looking at these pictures kind of backwards. And then here's another picture. Again, I think this was more of what we saw at the opening picture. Again, Spirit Lake in the back, Mount Adams out here, yeah, it's the west arm of the glacier there.
Is the glacier still growing?
It is still growing. It's not growing as fast as it once was, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. This was a picture taken in 2006 by the USGS. So you can actually really see where this, and this is the the height of activity, 2004 to 2008, the dome building activity, rebuilding itself, the mountain rebuilding itself. That thing is just, that mound is just building, and it is impinging on this glacier on both sides. You can see it here, you sort of the toe of it right here, and the toe of this side. And as this was building up, it was actually squishing the glacier against the crater walls and making it move faster, down towards the breach here. So the movement of the glacier kind of picked up speed during the 2004 to 2008 dome building episode. And again, here is the other, in 1986 to 1980 to 1986. That's the remnants of the dome that was built during that period. And then just this cool picture. You can really just see that spine of the rim, and right up about here is the actual highest part of the mountain, 83,000 or 8,366 feet or something. And this is where typically the climbing route, the Monitor Ridge route, comes up to an area about here. And it's not the true summit. You have to hike over here to the true summit.
Is that the area where that mountain climber fell a couple of years ago and died?
Yeah, it was right off of this area right in here. He got up there on an early morning, and he fell into the crater. Yeah. And unfortunately, he got out onto it. There's a big cornice in the winter. He's up here in the winter, and that cornice just builds out. And we try to go up there. Mt St Helens Institute we from time to time go up there and try to mark it with these posts, so these orange wands, so people know that it's dangerous. But people will just walk right up and right over to the edge and look over. I don't know what happened to that gentleman. He was an accomplished mountaineer.
I think he didn't die initially.
He didn't.
It was too steep for him to climb out.
He tried, yep.
And he didn't have his pack or any of his tools.
Yeah, and he died
Awful.
falling back. Yeah, unfortunate. It's about from the rim is let's say 8,300 feet. Okay, so the height of the in fact, I've got a figure. I should have put that in here, but I didn't. I've got a figure, and I can give you a good example or a good estimate there. The rim, the current dome, the altitude is 7,500 feet and change, and the actual rim is about 8,300 and change. Yes. Yeah, and it's like from the crater floor, it's about almost 1,200 feet, that dome that has rebuilt. So,
Is that steam?
yeah, that's steam. Yeah.
Does the dome melt the glacier? Next to it?
It probably does melt it a little bit, but only when when there's active lava coming out. But it's quite insulated here, around that from all the lava that has come up and built this dome. So I would imagine that there is not much wasting or melting of the glacier by that dome as we're speaking now. Okay, I mean it's minimal. So between the 80s, between 1980 and 2001, the glacier increased in thickness to a maximum of 656 feet thick and expanded in volume to about 2/3 of a cubic mile of ice. Interestingly, the glacier right now is not totally ice and snow. As we talked earlier, there's a large amount of rock debris from rock avalanches and that fall down into the crater. And the rock volume is thought to make up 1/3 of the glacier's volume. So pretty massive. Again, in 2004, when the dome building episode started to occur again, things became a little complicated as fire and ice started to interact during the beginning of a renewed period of volcanism. The new lava dome formed and expanded behind the old 1980 to 1986 lava dome, and this caused the crater glacier to split by the growing lava dome. So the glacier was compressed against the crater walls, thickened the glacier, and prompted a short-term rapid advance down around the lava dome, and caused the two arms of the glacier to merge in front of the 1980 to 1986 lava dome. Now I've got some photos as a little later here in the presentation of them, where they've come together. And so our glacier, Crater Glaciers, is currently one of the few expanding glaciers in North America. It continues to gain volume and advance northward since the eruption, but it does so at a decreasing rate from previous years because we don't have the effect of the building dome, that dome and squishing it out and making it thicken and making it move quicker. Now here's a cool picture. I think this is just this was taken in this is during the 2004 to 2008 dome building, and this is a really good example. This is called the whaleback. This is lava right here. This is lava that came up out of the ground. It's a dacite lava, and it's not like lava you see it in Hawaii or Iceland and all those bright, splashy nighttime pictures of the red lava coming out. That's a much thinner lava, less silica content. This is dacite, and these eruptions, these dome building, this lava comes up, and it pretty much solidifies before, in a very short period of time, and then it'll break down a bit and form up into that big dome. But this was between 2004 and 2008. But you can see back here that arm of the glacier there, and it's being compressed and you've got these crevasses from the movement and from the compression. And here along the west side here, down here, and this is the 2004 to 2008, and this is the 1980 to 1986 dome building. And eventually they're both going to meet right down here somewhere, and we'll see pictures of that as well. So it's advanced at different rates since its formation in the 80s. From the 80s to 2008, the glacier's growth was rapid, with advances of up to 135 feet per year and a thickening rate of about 50 feet per year. The flow speed to an average of about 1 to 2 feet per day as the volcanic lava dome building of 2004 to 2008 compressed the glacier arms against the wall. It's like squeezing toothpaste out of a toothpaste container. It resulted in a very rapid advance of the termini of both of them, or the snouts or the noses of both of them. And Crater Glacier, both arms of the Great Glacier joined north of the 1980s lava dome in May 2008, despite the volcanic activity that was going on. So it continued to move, it continued to grow, and it continued to advance, even though there was volcanic activity happening sort of in the center of it, the center of the two arms. From 2008 to the present, it slowed to an average of about 4 inches per day, and an increase of thickening to about 15 feet per year. An interesting thing, when we go up into the crater, there was this big rock up there, and we would sit there. We call it Lunch Rock. And over the years, it has been a place where everybody sat down and had lunch. It wasn't affected by the glacier, but it's getting real close. The glacier's getting a lot closer, so we might have to find another place to eat lunch when we go up into the crater. There was also a seismograph up there that they had to actually go in and take out, or it would have been destroyed by the advancing glacier. So, in fact, we used to go up and take people in. When we took people up into the crater, we would everybody would get together, and we'd limit the trip to 12 paying individuals. We did them all together in one little spot right next to the seismograph. We say, okay, everybody, 1, 2, 3, and everybody jump, and then we'd go back, and then we'd go online, and we'd look up that on the USGS website, and we'd show everybody where the little mini the little mini earthquake that they that was their blip on the seismograph. So everybody got a real kick out of that. So some of the key dates: September 1996. The photos show crevasses, the first evidence that the permanent snowfield was moving. And it wasn't, and that's when they actually start seeing all those crevasses, put it all together. Yep, it's moving. It's a glacier. Scientists determined that a glacier is forming in the crater. They figured that in the 1980s. Year 2000 was its maximum thickness of 656 feet. 2004 to 2008, rough times for the glacier, new volcanic dome. June 6, 2006, the U.S. Board of Geographic Names officially approved the name Crater Glacier for the glacier, which replaced Tillotson Glacier. Tillotson was the native word for ice, and that was preferred by the state of Washington. The state of Washington has a Bureau of Geographic Names, and so does the federal government. Federal government won out. Crater Glacier is just easier to say, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so it did have a name in Washington. It was called Tillotson Glacier at one point. Now it's Crater Glacier. February 2008, the west and the east arms of Crater Glacier joined on the slope just north of the 1980s dome. In 2013, it had lost about 15% of its volume during the 2004 to 2008 eruption, but it's now fully restored to its 91 million cubic yards of ice. That's a lot of ice. A lot of ice. Make a lot of snow cones out of that. Hold on. Which one do we have here? Oh yeah, okay. This one was 2007. And if you look, this is a real good example. Right there, there's the west arm and the snout of it, and here's the east arm and the snout. And they just about ready to merge. Remember in 2008, they merged. So there they are right there. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. But here, 2004 to 2008 dome, 86 to 80 to 86 dome. This will give you an idea. This is what it looked like in 2008, or I'm sorry, 2009, right here. You can see there where the west arm and the east arm had come together and merged. And then we're looking at, this is the last available, this is 2022. You even get these little glaciers coming down off the west side. And so yeah, it is still a growing glacier. How fast is it moving? GPS receivers on the glacier recorded rates as high as 6.5 to 8 feet per day in 2005. The snout advanced at rates ranging from 0.65 to 2 feet per day. After the the eruption or the dome building exercise, the rates stabilized about 4 inches a day. And it's not really well known when the downslope advance will cease. The glacier now, it's encroaching on a flatter terrain, the bottom of the breach, and so it's not going to probably move quite as quick. It's probably not going to advance as fast. Creeps northward and is no longer shadowed, protected from the sun by the walls of the crater. You're going to get more. You're going to get less crater dust, less rock, less insulation, and you're going to get more solar radiation, and it's going to start to melt a bit there. So it's not going to be quite as spectacular as we've seen over the past 45 years of glacier life. But yeah, it is the one of the only growing glaciers in North America, and actually one of the only growing glaciers on the planet, for that matter. So it's the youngest, and it's in our backyard. So, anybody have any questions?
Were the glaciers before the eruption, were they receding at all, or were they, all those glaciers?
Oh, all those glaciers up there.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I couldn't answer that for sure. Whether they were receding or whether they were maintaining. But I mean, most glaciers back in the the 70s and the 80s, I think that's probably when there was that kind of they were on a cusp, and things were starting to affect, and glaciers were starting to melt out, like we're seeing them now due to climate change. That a lot of these glaciers worldwide are melting. So I would imagine that some of those glaciers on the mountain maybe they weren't in equilibrium. Hard to say.
I want to ask, the glacier, if it were to stop, that's one thing, but if it were to continue, is it going toward Willett Falls, or is it more east of that?
Yeah, let's take a look here. I think I have a picture that might. I thought I had a picture here that showed. No, I guess I don't. I mean, eventually, if the glacier were to continue at its current thickening rate, which probably won't, and you saw how wide it was, it's going to bulldoze down. It would bulldoze down through the breach and down. And I would imagine, in X amount of years, if all things were equal and all things stayed the way they are now, then it might move down to Lewitt Falls. It might Step Falls, those areas down in there. Take out the Sasquatch Steps, and yeah. Yeah.
Is there any thought about, is it gonna blow again? Or is there just no way to predict that?
There's,
Until lots of
it is,
rumbling?
yeah, it is the most monitored volcano in North America. Okay, in the northern hemisphere, I probably ought to say. Really, I mean, there are other volcanoes that are monitored as well, but the USGS spends a lot of time looking at this one, and there are no indications right now that there's any kind of recharge of the magma chamber, that there's anything that would indicate, an eruption. But again, back in 1980, there wasn't any definite indication until May. March, and then over a period of 2 months, two or 3 months, it's boom, there we are. Same thing with Mount Baker. Was back in 1975. It started out of nowhere, just started acting up, but it never turned into the spectacular, eruption.
Rainier.
Oh, Rainier, it's still considered, I guess, an active volcano, and it's considered what's called a decade volcano, which is, there are only certain volcanoes in the world, a certain handful, because of their position to, their danger, their position to, development, population, and such. Rainier, I mean, they've got lahar drills for kids. We used to worry about, nuclear bombs falling on us and have to get underneath of our desks. Remember that? Well, they got to worry about mudslides, mud rivers coming down, in Puyallup, Sumner, those places there, all through there. They have these lahar drills, and they pull buses up, they get kids in them, and pull them out. So get them out of. So Mount Rainier is a very. You wouldn't even really have to have a super eruption out of Rainier, because it's got so many glaciers. You have a bit of an eruption, and you melt that glacier water, and it's coming down. It's going to bring a lot down with it. So. All right. Any other questions?
How close do you get on your tours to the glacier?
You saw that picture with the people in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably 100, 150 feet. You don't want to when you're up there, because you can't imagine. You just sit there and you hear these crashing rocks. And it's like, I was thinking the first time I went up there, I was like, I want to go up there and touch a glacier. And it's like, I don't think so. Not when I saw those rocks coming down. And it's a constant fall. It's a constant rock fall.
Well, you're paying a lot of money. You want some excitement.
That's what I wanted. I wanted to go up. I wasn't paying any money, but I wanted to go up and touch the glacier, just to say I had. And they said, no way, no way.
Are they able to get close enough to peek down into the dome?
I'm sorry?
Are they able to get close enough to peek down into the dome?
Oh, you can get up on the ridge, or up on the what do you call it? The crater rim.
Yeah.
You can look right down on it. I've got pictures of it where you can look right down and see steam coming out. You see the fissures in the top of the dome. Yes, definitely.
Where's the rocks coming from? Are they just coming down from the ridge?
From the sides of up on the ridge and up on the sides. As those rocks were really modified, they were damaged, they were weakened by that eruption. Okay, and then there's erosion, there's wind, there's freeze-thaw cycles that.
In our lifetime, it'll be a nice round mountain pretty soon.
Well, I don't think in our lifetime, but in geologic time, at some point it will rebuild itself. I'm almost positive.
I don't like the way it looks now.
You want it back the way you remember it, and I don't blame you. I never saw it in person, but. Yeah, I can imagine it was. The pictures I see, it's just beautiful. So, you want it back. Any other questions? Thank you. I appreciate it.